Good evening, everyone. Um, Life today would be impossible to imagine without computers. Every system and organization in the human world needs them in some way. In fact, I think it's quite fair to say that computers have changed our lives faster and further than any other invention. And we hear a lot of talk today about how computers are the future and about how there's a huge need for computer scientists. In fact, I'm a computer science major at college. But how many of us actually know how computers work? I know that I didn't until I was 13 when I built my own computer, and in the years since then, I've come to love computer science, and I want to share some of that love with you guys today. So here goes why I love computer science. To begin with, what is computer science? Words that come to mind are code, programming, software, but really at its essence, computer science is about problem solving, and that's one of the main reasons that I love it. Life may look incredibly complex, but in reality, everything can be distilled down to rules. And while computers are incredibly powerful problem-solving machines, they just have trouble chewing up really large problems. So it's a computer scientist's job to break large problems down into chunks that a computer can digest. This normally involves making charts and logic and breaking problems up into steps. And all the training that we go through is really just to allow us to do these and to see the steps and the underlying logic behind everything. It can take a little creativity, but when it's done, the results can really be staggering. I'll show you how this is done a little later, but right now I want to get you excited about it. And one of my favorite examples of how you can break a complex thing down into simple steps and still maintain the complexity about it is this incredible game called Dwarf Fortress, created by these two brothers. This is a screenshot from the game, and it's a bit of a stretch to call it a game actually, it's more of a simulation. But basically the player's in charge of a family of dwarfs, and they must survive as long as they can in this randomly generated world. You can't control what they do, you can only make a list of steps that need to be done, and the dwarves figure out how to do it by themselves. And it might not look like much, but this is actually an incredibly complex software. There's no real story coded into it, it's just entirely rule-based, so the developer made a list of rules that the world must follow in incredible detail, and then everything just follows with it. So to give you an example of how detailed he's really made this game, there's a value in the software for the melting point of the fat in the dwarf's skin, and the creator once recalled an incident where he had set that value too low, and any dwarf who was wet who entered a warm room would instantly melt because the fat in their skin would melt. And it was completely unexpected for him, but these kind of surprises keep popping up in this game. So one of my favorite stories is that which another player shared, in which he said that there was this dwarf he had who was greatly admired by an eagle. But the dwarf didn't really care for the eagle much, and one day the fortress got attacked by a dragon, and the dwarf got cornered by the dragon, and the eagle saw this and came and plucked out the dragon's eyes to help the dwarf. So then the dwarf and the eagle became good friends after that, and they lived on for many more years, and finally of old age the dwarf died. And all the dwarves in the fortress couldn't find his bones because they needed to bury him, but they didn't know where his bones were. And after a long search, they finally found his bones on the roof of the fortress next to some eagle feathers. And it turned out that just before he died, this dwarf had gone up to spend some time with his old friend, and then had died on the roof. And it's at this point that I have to remind you that it's a machine that came up with all the emotions behind the story, and it's a computer that came up with this entire thing. And I have to admit that I couldn't not try playing this after I heard about it. It's not designed to be easy, but I did worse at it than I thought I would, so just to go a little bit on the side, my dwarf started out really well, but then they soon ran out of water. And I tried searching for a water source, but I just couldn't, so I had to substitute water with some beer that I could make from grains that I had in stock. Substituting all the water in someone's diet with beer is not a good option. And then when a werewolf attacked a little later, they absolutely couldn't do anything, so they all died. But at least they must have gone down laughing. Anyway, the takeaway from all of this is that it was a software that came up with all of this, and this software comes very close to actually simulating life and all the seemingly random events in nature. But it could only have actually done all of this if the man who coded this up was able to see all the patterns and learn the logic that links everything together. And I think it's really incredible what you can simulate once you've captured what really controls something, from simple physics to these epic tales that happen in here. What I also found really difficult at first to wrap my head around was how fast computers work. So the typical chip in your home computer can do 30 to 70 billion calculations a second. And the world's nearly 34 quadrillion calculations in 1 second. And that's 10 to the 15, so that's 15 zeros behind a 34. And this makes it possible to simulate events that would manually take years to in a matter of seconds, or to react to events in real time, which is a huge advantage that we have nowadays to earlier. So to give you a simple example of how this might help, the Boeing 787, which is a new airplane just released, it has something called smooth ride technology, which can reduce the effects of turbulence by 60 to 70%. So what happens is there's sensors across the entire plane measuring air pressure and the forces acting on the airplane and movement of the airplane. And all this data is fed into a central computer that can then make adjustments to control surfaces to react to turbulence in real time. So if a gust of wind occurs and pushes the plane down, the computer will move the plane up just the right amount instantly to make it seem like the plane was flying straight all along. And this entire system would not work if it weren't possible for the plane to immediately calculate how much it needs to move up by to make it seem like it was flying level all along. And the amount of data that these systems must be processing is huge. But when you think about numbers this large, it really doesn't seem that much. And even a decade ago, it would have been absolutely unthinkable for this to be possible. Now, I'm no Google programmer, but even in my one semester at college studying computer science, it's kind of beginning to change the way I look at the world. And whether or not you're a computer scientist, I think that there's value in learning to think like one. So I thought we could spend a few minutes on that and go through a question I was given my very second week, actually, of studying computer science. So the scenario is as follows. You're stuck on a desert island, and your GPS has stopped working because it's lost the value for pi that it needs. You also have a square piece of cardboard that's 1 meter by 1 meter, and your friend, who is an international darts champion, has 1,000 darts in his suitcase. Don't ask me why. So you're supposed to calculate the value of pi so that you can get off the island. And it's not hard to see that there's really no way that a computer would be able to deal with this problem as it is. So it needs the creativity of a human to break it down into steps that a computer can manage. So let's try doing that right now. Whoops. So that's your cardboard piece. And we know that pi is related to circles. So why don't we start by drawing a circle with a diameter of 1 meter on the cardboard piece. Now if we told our friend to throw all 1,000 darts at this cardboard, it's likely that most of the surface will be covered by darts. I'm sorry, I didn't throw 1,000 darts at it. The number of darts that fall within our circle to the total number of darts thrown should be about the same as the ratio to the area of the circle to the area of the entire square. That's the space the entire square occupies. Think about it this way. If I drew a line down the middle of the square, the number of darts that fall on one side will be half, and the number of darts that fall on the other side will be half. This is because the area of one side of the square is exactly half the area of the total square. So, if we pick up all the darts from this dartboard and count how many fell inside the circle and how many fell in total, we can find the value for the area of the circle. And we know that the area of the circle is pi times the radius squared, so we rearrange a few equations and we get the value of pi. And now that we've broken it up like this, we can actually put it down into code. So the coding is only the very last step of the entire process. And I've written this program out actually. In mine I threw 1,000,000 darts. And the entire thing runs in less than a second. So only using a computer can you throw 1,000,000 darts in less than 1 second. And since it's actually approximating the value changes slightly every time. But I got about 3.1 for every time. And that was really cool. So I hope that this example showed you what I mean when I say that computer science is not really about programming. It's more about understanding things. And that's why I love it so much. We all benefit from computer science on a daily basis. And tonight I've given you just 2 small examples of how it changes our lives, from incredibly useful, such as systems to improve the safety of airplanes, to life-changing, such as little dwarves who live their entire lives as numbers in a chip. And it's for this reason that lots of governments, especially now in the West, are trying to encourage students to take up STEM subjects, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think that there is value in that, but this is not really a STEM advocacy talk. I'm not trying to say that everyone should become a computer scientist. What I'm trying to say is that there's value in learning to think like one. The emphasis on deconstructing large problems with creativity, it really does change the way you process the world, and I think it's really worth looking into at least once in your life. Thank you.